Welcome. It's art. It's music. It's life. It's fashion. It's listening. It's learning. It's sharing. It's determining and discerning fact from fiction, from illusion, from fantasy. It's art inspired by life. It's life inspired by art. We're living at a time like no other on planet Earth. Spiritual, physical, metaphysical, insights, wisdom, challenges. We're more connected by technology and less connected to each other. We're all seeking answers, and we're often too busy to listen for the truth. Her story and his story and our story. I research, I question, I look for answers to share with you, exploring higher visions. Authors and publishers and creatives, all bringing us their empowerment tools, their insights. And I'm mining for those gems of wisdom. We share the fiery energy of transformation, healing, inspiration, and lots of revelations. Let's chat. Let's explore. So that brings me to the next one that actually came up today in a conversation I was having with a friend. And it was about want. Because as I shared with her, and I'm sure I've shared this before, but when you've experienced a lot of trauma and you've been in situations where you've been made to feel really small, insignificant, you don't matter, it's really hard to know what you want. Number one, because expressing that you wanted something, you may have been punished for wanting. Be satisfied with what you have. Don't be greedy. You're never satisfied. Or you'll get yours after everyone else gets theirs. And then I go back to the biblical teachings. The first shall be last, the last shall be first. So you may, as I did, think that's just how it is. You know, there's no point in even trying to be served first or take care of myself first, because that's not what you want. You want to be a good person. You want to be last. And these kinds of things are, to me, part of the patriarchal indoctrination of, be docile, be accepting whatever, people walk all over you, that's okay. You'll get yours later. If you don't get paid according to, the same as other people, maybe if you're a woman, if you don't get paid as much as men doing the same job, because after all, you don't need it as much. And you say, I guess I'll get mine someday. Or other people tell you, well, you'll get your reward when you get to heaven. Who does that work for? I mean, I'm quite certain, it is my belief, that when I was not in my body, I had everything I needed. When you come to Earth, you get a physical body and you have needs, physical needs. Right? You need a roof over your head, you need food, you need clothing, you need physical things. You don't need them when you're not in your body. So telling people to wait and that they will be rewarded after they're dead and they can work their butts off for other people in this life doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. And I don't know why people didn't ever question those things eons ago and just throw that all stuff out, because it's very damaging. It's very productive for those who want to control other people, but it's not very productive for people who want to live a good life, who want to thrive, who want to create. You want to create things. You want to, like with my art, I want to create paintings. I have to buy the canvases, the paint, have the time to do it. I have to, all of those things.
you can't do that if you don't have the money. I mean, you can paint in sand and dirt. I mean, in the sense of you can create, but it doesn't last, right? As soon as it rains, it's gone. So we do need physical things in this physical reality. So we are taught to not want, I shall not want, except for why would you be asking? As Jesus said, ask and you shall receive. Why would you need to ask for anything if you weren't supposed to have any need or want? But want always makes me think of lack. And lack, I know I'm going down a kind of a rabbit hole here because it's all connected. And I really feel like I just want you to question a little bit some of the propaganda that we're fed, the indoctrination, the programming, and ask yourself if there's something beyond what you've been taught that could make your life better by if you believed something else. So I was looking at want today, and for years I've had people ask me that. Well, what do you want? And I never knew. Because I always because of the trauma I'd been through, I was trained to look around the room. What do other people want? So if you're ordering a pizza and everybody wants mushrooms on that pizza, and I don't like mushrooms, and some people know that I don't like mushrooms, but they'll say, what do you think? What if we get 2 big mushroom pizzas? I would likely say, okay. So that's not what I want. I might have wanted pizza, but I didn't want the mushrooms on it. But what I learned to do is compromise. Get the pizza and pick off all of the mushrooms. Instead of saying, how about half the pizza doesn't have mushrooms on it? Or actually, I'll just order my own smaller pizza. But I never knew there were those choices, right? It was like, there are 2 choices. You have pizza or you don't have pizza. So what's going to be? So I would go with the pizza, right? Because I'm hungry. So when choices are presented like that when you are a child, you kind of learn to adapt. You don't want to make waves. You don't want to cause trouble. You don't want to cause conflict. And I have learned that not trying to avoid conflict does cause a great deal of conflict within. And sometimes you actually do need conflict to clear the air, just like a storm comes in and clears the air. Sometimes you do need it. It doesn't have to be full-on violent, type of storm. You don't have to wait till the pressure builds so high that you have that. But you can have conflict, disagreement. And for years, I've wanted peace so much that I tried to avoid the conflicts everywhere. And it's not very productive. And, when you think about it, even the birthing process, there is some struggle there. There is a little conflict in the sense between the mother's body and the baby's body while this is trying to be birthed. There's a little expansion and contraction and movement and shifting and separation eventually in that birthing process. And sometimes it's like that with relationships too. There's conflict, there's struggle, there's push and pull, there's expansion. Sometimes one person's expanding more than the other. There's contraction. And sometimes there's separation because it's part of our growth. It's part of our birthing. It's part of us becoming. We didn't just come here to stay, as little children. That's why we mature, we learn, we expand, we explore. And when I say about trauma, I think living on the planet even if you didn't have dramatic trauma as a child or in your family, is a good chance you had some in your ancestral lineage. There's a good chance somewhere on the planet at any given time that you might have had a past life or even this life, there is traumatic events happening, whether it's weather, whether it's war, whatever it is. And it just depends on how you internalize that. What did that trauma mean for you? And how does it kind of frames the way you see the rest of your life, the events after. Because I always say, everything that happened to me before today prepared me for today. So whether it good or bad, it prepared me. If I burnt my hand on the stove once, I'm going to remember that. And you don't have to hold on to those memories. You don't have to, I don't, every time I look at a stove, say, oh, that's hot. I better not put my hand on that when it's hot. I don't have to do that. It's there. But somehow we do tend to hold on to really traumatic events and keep regurgitating them and seeing, could I have done it different? Could they have done it different? They should have treated me better. I should have responded differently. So we keep replaying those things, but we don't actually need to, because we've had the experience. The one time I burned my hand on a stove is enough. I don't have to hold on to the memory in order to know not to do that. There's body memory, there's cell memory, there's your mind, there's all kinds of components here working. Your nervous system, it's all there. But we don't tend to let go, like you see animals letting go of trauma, shaking it off, and then carrying on like nothing happened. I think we humans could do that a lot more. And also looking at, if we didn't have somebody to help us understand what happened in an event, and we're an adult now, and we still are looking at things, or they're still controlling us, let's say, I think it's really helpful to, one, have some therapy, whether it's talk therapy or, a psychologist or whatever, to reframe things, to look at things through a bigger picture as an adult versus the child, because you do tend to get stuck. For years, I kind of was stuck at 9 years old, which was when my father died. Suddenly, unexpectedly, massive heart attack. He was super healthy before that. He had just had a physical months before. So it was traumatic for him to leave at that time in my life. And I didn't understand it, and the way that it was handled at the time, which I've talked about in my memoir and among other things. But just to give you an idea that it's not what happens, it's the meaning we gave it. And I know there's a saying, it's another saying, life doesn't happen to us, life happens for us. And I say, life happens. We have nothing to do with it. Life happens. Like when a big storm comes and a tree's knocked down, did that happen to me or for me? And all of my neighbors? It just happened. Now, do I make it personal? That's the part. How life happens, and how do I interpret it and give it meaning? Or what meaning do I give it? Did the tree fell, the winds came, the tree fell because I had done something bad? Was it because I deserved that? If you're a child, you can often put meaning like that. Or even as an adult, I remember the story of my grandmother who was having an argument with her mother, and she was very angry at her, and my great-grandmother was saying something that was really upsetting to my grandmother, and she kind of cursed her, and she said, I wish God would, stop your tongue from working, or something like that. and she had a stroke and she couldn't speak. And so my grandmother thought that she had done this to her. So she took it personally. She had said, regardless of whatever my great grandmother was saying that was maybe totally inappropriate. And one could say that my grandmother also, her response was inappropriate. But just the same, it's about how it was interpreted. And then when the story was told to me, how did I interpret it? And what meaning did I make it have about the power of cursing someone or saying something like that to someone, And so not saying anything because not wanting to take responsibility for, someone else having a problem. Like, I wish you'd go away and never come back. And then something happens and they have an accident and they die. Was it because I said that? No. So life just happens. That is my sense. Life happens. People come into the earth according to divine timing and they leave according to divine timing, not because of anyone else being good or bad, and not because of them being good or bad. And I do think we all have points, outs, times when, we've agreed with the Creator who went before we came here. If this gets too hard, I want to leave. I want these outs. And I think those places are there. And you can, sometimes look back on your life and see times where, I think I was at a choice point there. And I think it's important for us to, instead of just accepting the memes coming at us and just reading it and going, oh, like, don't like, agree, don't agree, asking ourselves what it really means to us. Do we really believe that? Because every time I see a meme these days, I find myself saying, I used to believe that, but I don't anymore. It doesn't actually make sense. That's not a truth for me. And the more I do that, the more I find myself seeing the world in a whole different way and really loving it, like really loving it in a way that I didn't before. So I keep coming back to this want and the conversation I had earlier. And it was that people were asking me over the years, what do you want, Catherine? Well, what do you want out of life? And it was a problem for me, a big problem, because for one thing, wanting always felt like a state of unsatisfaction, never having that thirst quenched. I want to drink water. No, I'm thirsty. I'm going to go get a drink of water. It's done. It's not asking someone else to get me a drink of water. I'm thirsty. If I have a want, a feel, a need, then I have to do it myself because I didn't have anyone I could lean on, anyone I could feel, or I felt that I could ask for my needs to be met. And because it had been a big no all the time if I asked somebody else for help. No, not now, couldn't do it, can't, And so I learned very soon that if I wanted something done, I had to do it myself. I couldn't depend on somebody to come to my rescue, that's for sure. And not that I'm saying you should be rescued, because I'm not. I'm not saying you should be rescued or you need to be rescued. There are times when it's very helpful to have someone really support you, encourage you. They can't do the work for you. They're not going to do your life for you, but they can give you a hand up, right? But the word want has always left me with a strange feeling because as soon as someone asks me, what do you want? I have a big no. I don't want. Because wanting had so many chords. If you want something, somebody else has a tool now to manipulate you. If I say, I want a new car, and somebody else says, well, I can get you a new car. All you have to do is excuse me, this, or this. And too often I found, and especially for women, very often, we're in a position where we have to do things we actually don't want to do in order to get our needs met. And unfortunately, that's been our training. Like, we believed that's just the way it is, that there was no other way. And I don't believe that's true at all, but I do believe it's been part of our indoctrination. I do believe the Creator, all that is, doesn't see women as inferior to men. Hardly. I mean, we are the ones bringing life into the world. We are the ones birthing new life into the world. That's quite a heavy responsibility. And I don't think that would be given to someone that was thought of as inferior. Why would you treasure for 9 months a human life growing inside another being if they were inferior? You wouldn't. And this is not a statement on whether a woman should or should not carry a child in their womb. It's the fact that that is given to us as a gift and a responsibility. And that's not something you would give to somebody who was inferior. Birthing a new creation, something that belongs to the divine, is a treasure. So there's no way that would make any sense. But in the patriarchal system, in the mind of man, especially the mind of man trying to say they know the mind of God, everything has become twisted. And what has been valued and what has been blasphemed, the things that are precious and divine and perfect in the feminine, have been really stepped on. Like the earth, which has also been stepped on and taken advantage of. I can take it for granted that the earth will sustain me. Ask and you shall receive. But that's not taking advantage of her. So 2 different things. So let's just take a short break, a little pause. I'll show you what desire created, and then I'll talk to you a little bit more about my insights between want and desire. And desire is so juicy. First, let's just listen to this beautiful music and breathe, and I'll share with you one of my paintings from my original acrylic arts. This one's called Stardust. Just breathe. Thought about wanting and how hard it was for me to answer that question when people said, what do you want? And it is because it became a dirty word for me, a word I don't like, a word that doesn't really fit. Because if I have an abundance of, I have a roof over my head, I want for nothing. That's the truth. Want is, I want for nothing. But I have desire. And it was the desire that finally came for me today to share. It's desire. It's not want. Because if ask and it is given, it's life. Once I was given life, I matter. I became matter, physical matter. And I'm on the planet. And part of being physical on the planet is to thrive. To have food, water, shelter, all those things. We all have that right. And the only reason some of us seem to not have it is because others have decided that some people are superior to others. And that's a lie. That doesn't come from the divine. The divine doesn't create inferior, superior. That was never a truth. That is absolute and utter bullshit. 100%. And I mean, even the idea of this inequality and the fact that some religions have promoted this imbalance, it's political. It's a control structure, and men aren't benefiting and women are not benefiting. There's a handful of beings that are benefiting from pitting us against each other in wars, and it all is about making money. But it's not just the profit of money. It's the profit of resources of this planet, controlling them, and abusing and using humans as slaves in different forms. Even though we've abolished slavery in many places, most places on the planet, it still exists. It's just under different names, let's say. But we are still having people who are working for pennies to try to put food on their table. And this is a man-made crisis. This is not something designed by God. This is man-made. And so we can change that. But a lot of it has to do with our beliefs, what we've learned to accept and expect. We see certain people as less than and other people as better than, and we buy into it. We buy into these structures. And I think the reason I want to share this with you is because I think part of how we help to ease the patriarchy out of their role is by increasing our awareness of the language that we use. And I'm not saying I've got this all figured out or that it's perfect, but I do think there's a lot of power in the word. And that's something that was also in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word. And that, to me, tells me the power of the word, the spoken word. And it's not just the word itself, it's the energy behind the word. Ask, and it is given. Take it for granted that it is a truth, that you ask and it is given. And then get out of the way and let it come to you, what it is you've asked for. And be grateful for it. There's a lot of power in our gratitude. I mean, it's huge energy. So instead of, I have no want, but I have desire. And desire is also, the word means of the Father. Desire. And even though Father isn't God is not a man, we have come to internalize the concept of a masculine God. So the word Father, in this sense, to me, is divine. So desire is of the divine. So inspiration, that feeling of, just excitement, desire for great career, desire for artistic endeavors, desire to fulfill laughter, joy, relationships, desire to build a better world, more peaceful, more harmonious, more fair, just, equality. I have that desire. It's not a want. It is not a want because I know there is no lack. And I feel like the word want, even just saying it, feels like I'm saying there's a lack. There's no lack. There is no lack. There's an abundance of resources. There's an abundance of creativity. There's abundance of wisdom and love. Infinite, unconditional love. And we can experience that through desire, letting the desire. And desire has no guilt. Desire it was juicy. It isn't want. Want is so hard. It feels like hard. Like I compare the words and I look at want and it feels like a big brick of steel, kind of cold. And desire is fluid, like liquid fire. And it's so juicy and so full of potential and creativity. And so I really wanted to share that with you because I'm thinking if words are that powerful and energy behind those words is super powerful to manifest the lives we want, that we say we want, then we have to shift our language around some of these things. Or I think for me, it is beneficial to shift my language. And I can only really speak for myself on these things, but I do see the evidence of it in my own life. When I have something pops up and kind of triggers me to question it. Does that really mean that? Am I really saying that? Is that for real? When it's not, I have to really step back, and I do, because that's me. I like to explore. I like to expand my horizons. That's what I like to do. And then, I like to take that desire into my art, into my writing, into all of the things I'm creating, my fashions, to see the possibilities. I mean, we don't need more clothes on the planet, right? But I really felt called to create ethical clothing that is made in Canada, made with really great labor laws, so that the people making the product are being taken care of properly, are being rewarded for their work, and that my artistic part of it is honored and respected and is displayed the way I want it to be on the clothing. So people are going to wear clothing, and it's a matter of, are they wearing clothing that's mass manufactured or uniquely, creatively inspired, high vibrational, energized clothing? And so, because I realize that this planet, we're here to grow. We're here to expand. We're not just here to consume, but we're here when we consume. It's awesome when we can do it ethically, when we can do it with respect for the earth. Of course, anything we do on this planet is going to have an impact on her, an impression. We're here on the planet. So while we're having this human experience, it's important to try to make the least damaging impression and the most enhancing, so we can leave the world better than we found it, so that we can do things in a better way. Because we're going to continue to wear clothing. We're going to continue to need food and houses and so forth. But as we evolve and find better ways to do it, I think it really behooves us to desire that and watch it come to life. Watch it become something new and exciting and possible, so that we're giving our children not just hope, but really faith and trust that we are giving them something worthwhile to inherit, to experience. And I think, like, a lot of the depression and just utter frustration that's happening right now is because a lot of people have been wanting. They're wanting change. They're wanting a better world. They're wanting. But as long as you're wanting, it's lack. And I would just love to see people desiring and shifting how they see it. Because to me, desire indicates possibility, inspiration. If I have a desire, there's something inside of me that's part of my heart, part of my energy, and it wants to be born. And that's the kind of energy I want to give to the next generations. To, I didn't have a lot of guidance to harness my inspiration when I was a kid, but I did have the sense that there was more and there was potential. And I think we're giving children, young people, some really depressing messages in our media and in our adult behavior generally, when we're out in public and people are unleashing their pent up anger and resentment and just hate and fear, a lot of fear. And children are seeing that. And it's scary for children to look up and see, there's no adults in charge up there. I'm looking up and there's these adults don't know what they're doing. Look at them. They're chastising us for fighting or for squabbling with our siblings or, not sharing in preschool. And then you look and you see what they're doing, the adults are doing. It's got to be traumatic for them to see adults behaving in that way. Our words and our actions have a vibration that ripples through generations. And we're seeing today the ripples of what wasn't healed in the past. And I'm committed to sharing information and wisdom that I've learned the hard way from real life, the life of hard knocks, and the insights that I've got from growing up very traumatized and multiple experiences of trauma and what I learned from those things. That's why I shared in my memoir. And if you're interested in the memoir, it is on my website, cwcartandsoul.com. Because if we just experience stuff and then bury it under the carpet and then pretend it didn't happen, we're not really healing ourselves and giving ourselves a life we really could be living. And on top of that, by just keeping it to myself, all of that wisdom, all of that I learned would just go to my grave with me. When I do believe that even in writing it, I've offered those words as vibration to help other people to see a different potential, a different possibility, a different way of looking at things, and to ask themselves questions like, what did I think that meant? And was that actually right? That maybe I was glorifying some quality in my family member that isn't very glorious. Maybe I thought that, I remember hearing a story when I was a kid of one of my ancestors, a great-grandfather, I think, who was a very big man and a very arrogant man. And he was sadistic. He would step on somebody's foot, and if they complained, he would chastise them and punish them for having their foot where he was wanting to step. And when I first heard that, I thought it was kind of funny because I was a kid. And I thought it was funny, but it was really mean. And it's kind of like when you see something in a movie and you think, oh man, because it's so outrageous. But I never forgot that. And I know that I needed to examine that and forgive that, even though it didn't happen to me. But I could see that sadistic trait in different people in my life. And that gave me the sense, seeing that as a trait, that it was a wound that wasn't healed, and it was showing up in other people in my life. And so I knew that in forgiving that, looking at it for what it wasn't funny, owning it, saying so, and that it wasn't something I would tolerate, was really important to me. And I think that's what my real message today is, to look at the things we say and to diffuse them, take their sting away by examining, what does it really mean? What do those words really mean? And would I prefer another word? And it's the same as the sense of grief. That's another point for me, an awareness that I had in my own healing journey. And that is that I can hear about somebody else experiencing the death of a child, like happened to me, and it doesn't trigger me into an emotional breakdown. I do not become overwhelmed with my own grief again, with my memories again. And what occurred to me is, because I wondered, well, what's happened? How is it that that's not happening to me? Because I know that when my son was killed, I had people who had lost a loved one, and they weren't killed, they just died in a different way, and old age, different things. And as soon as they saw me, they started to cry. And I thought, why are they having that reaction? And what happened for me was an understanding that when people say, get over it, we don't. That's number one. We don't get over life. We don't get over life. How can you get over life? You can't. That's absolutely the most absurd thing I ever hear. You don't get over. It becomes part of you. And so experiencing the death of my son, I had a very mystical experience when it happened. And again, I talked about it in my memoir. It's called Permission to Breathe, by the way. That's the name of the book. But when I had that experience, I also was aware that it opened my heart to be able to feel my own feelings for the first time in a very long time. I was so empathic that I could feel everyone else's emotions all the time. I was always picking up on their emotions, and I was running to try to ease their pain. I was trying to fix things, even get ahead of it, because it was hurting me. Their pain, I was feeling. Their sadness, I was feeling. And so it was overwhelming me. And so I had to learn to get into my own body and feel my own feelings without being consumed by other people's. And I've worked on that so that I can actually just be me and be in a room with other people and not pick up on all their energy unless I want to. But generally, I can navigate the world without picking up on everybody's hate and anger and fear and sadness and everything. So that when someone is going through something like the death of a child, I can have empathy and not sympathy. I can have empathy and I can understand the degree of their pain, their sorrow. I can offer them my ear, my shoulder, but I do not allow myself to wear their feelings. And there's a big difference. It is to be able to have healthy boundaries, to be in my own body, to be aware of, because I've experienced it myself, their grief. But their grief is going to be very unique to them. I had my experience, and it's very unique to me. Same as childbirth, really, to me. My childbirth experience, I had 2 children. Both of them were different childbirth experiences. So when a whole bunch of women get together and start talking about their childbirth experiences, they're all different. They're all unique. And not only that, we don't actually feel each other's pain unless we are like I was, feeling other people's energy and not my own. We don't have room to carry around all that other stuff. Our job is to be us, uniquely, authentically us, in our bodies, experiencing all of our feelings, all of our emotions, and allowing that to be part of the navigation system, our intuition, our inspiration, our desire for life. I feel like that really we came to being because of divinity's desire. I'm here because divinity desired me to be having this experience for the embodiment of spirit in this physical manifestation with this DNA, these quirks, these all of what makes me Catherine. And you, uniquely desired by God. You don't have to call it God, universe, divine, whatever you want to call it. And to me, it's just a matter of shifting my beliefs, the words that I'm using and telling myself, the words that I'm throwing out, looking at my glass and noticing there are other choices. It's not half full, half empty. I'm not an optimist automatically or a pessimist automatically. I'm a realist, but I can be very optimistic and I can be very pessimistic. And I don't just have two choices. I can be somewhere in the middle. I can also be totally blasé and not give a care. You know, it's possible to look at life through our own unique lens. It doesn't have to be black or white. There's other choices. So I'm giving up the thought about having to, true or false. Give me more information. Black or white. I don't know, maybe a shade of gray. Maybe there's other hues in there. And I encourage you to examine your life and the words you use, the sayings that you say, and do they really mean what I think it means? Because I can tell you that take it for granted was one of my big ahas, because I thought, why wouldn't I? What is ask and you shall receive? If I don't take it for granted, then I'm denying the very truth that I've been told. And when you look at the laws of the universe, the laws of the universe work whether they don't pass in Parliament or in our governments, whether they're approved by man or not. They're laws of the universe. They work. Laws of gravity. We've been trying to defy the laws of gravity for eons, but we can't, right? And so it's the same thing with all the other laws. We can try and defy them all we want. It doesn't matter. We can pass laws. We could try and put people in jail if we wish. It's not going to work because the laws of the universe supersede any man-made ideas. And I think that's powerful because when you think about it, that divine energy is in us, each one of us. And our power is so much more than what we have been led to believe. And if words are like spells, I put a spell on you. Well, because there's power in the word. And so the words we say to each other in our communications on social media and internally have power, the power to create. In the beginning was the word. So if you want to manifest, you have to use the right words. If you want to manifest, you are manifesting, whether or not you like what you're manifesting is the other part of it. So I want to just give you that opportunity. I want to invite you to just expand your horizons. Maybe let go of want. I've let go of want. And I'm really enjoying my life a lot more by doing so. And I'm really into desire. I love desire. I desire a better world. And I desire that for you too. And I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing and visiting my website and, your comments on my art and my fashions. I'm loving it. I'm loving hearing about it. I know this is the time for me to bring out this high vibe energy in my art, in my clothing, and in my writing, and in my podcasts. So hearing back from you, your comments, your encouragement, your support is priceless to me. So if you hit the like button, share, subscribe, tell your friends that it's possible. It's possible to have a different point of view. And we don't have to argue about it. If this resonates with you, terrific. If it doesn't, let it go. It wouldn't have resonated with me years ago, especially when I was really practicing Roman Catholic years ago. I just heard the words. It was from birth. I accepted it. And I never questioned how come some of these things applied to me, but not to others. Now I question everything. I question everything. And I encourage you to do the same. So thank you for joining me. And until next time, take care.
Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for subscribing or following, liking, and sharing the podcast. It helps me grow this channel and hopefully reaches more people with an empowering message. It's always nice to know there is wisdom out there and you can tap into it. Visit the website for more information on how to be a guest, see the guest list and future shows and topics. And while you're there, I invite you to browse my acrylic art pieces on canvas and wood. They make an amazing home decor, high vibe art. And you'll also find the link to my storefront for luxurious women's fashions and home decor, created and designed by me with my art and manufactured in Montreal, Canada by the Galeriste. And it is really amazing to have found them. They are environmentally conscious. They use a special dye that doesn't fade, and it's humanely manufactured. It is an awesome time to be on the planet and have these choices. So I invite you to explore and see if there is something there for you. Until next time, take care.